Eleanor Hill, Executive Director of the Joint Congressional Committee investigating the performance of the U.S. Intelligence Community before September 11, 2001, reported that in mid-September 2002 that intelligence reports a year earlier reiterated a consistent and constant theme: Osama bin Laden's intent to launch terrorist attacks inside the United States. That joint inquiry revealed that just 2 months before September 11, an intelligence briefing for senior government officials predicted a terrorist attack with these words: "The attack will be spectacular and designed to inflict mass casualties against U.S. facilities or interests. Attack preparations have been made. The attack will occur with little or no warning." It's a quote. Given the White House's insistence on secrecy with regard to what intelligence was given to President Bush, the Joint Inquiry Report does not divulge whether he took part in that briefing. Even if he did, it strains credulity to suppose that those senior government officials would have kept its alarming substance from the President. Again, there's no evidence that the President held any meetings or took any action to deal with the threats of such attacks. In all of these actions and decisions, President George W. Bush has acted in a manner contrary to his trust as President and subversive of constitutional government, to the prejudice of the cause of law and justice, and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Wherefore, President George W. Bush, by such conduct, is guilty of an impeachable offense warranting removal from office. Article 34, obstruction of the investigation into the attacks of September 11th, 2001. In his conduct while President of the United States, George W. Bush, in violation of his constitutional oath to faithfully execute the office of President of the United States, and to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty under Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution, to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, has both personally and acting through his agents and subordinates, together with the Vice President, obstructed investigations into the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon on September 11, 2001. Following September 11, 2001, President Bush and Vice President Cheney took strong steps to thwart any and all proposals that the circumstances of the attacks be addressed. Then Secretary of State Colin Powell was forced to renege on his public promise on September 23rd that a white paper would be issued to explain the circumstances. Less than 2 weeks after that promise, Powell apologized for his unfortunate choice of words and explained that Americans would have to rely on information coming out in the press and in other ways. On September 26, 2001, President Bush drove to Central Intelligence Agency CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, and stood with the Director of Central Intelligence, George Tenet, and said, quote, "My report to the nation is we've got the best intelligence we can possibly have thanks to the men and women of the CIA," unquote. George Tenet subsequently and falsely claimed not to have visited the President personally between the start of Bush's long Crawford vacation and September 11th, 2001. Testifying before the 9/11 Commission on April 14, 2004, Tenet answered a question from Commission member Timothy Romer by referring to the President's vacation, July 24th through August 30th, in Crawford, and insisting that he did not see the President at all in August 2001. "You never talked with him?" Romer asked. "No," Tenet replied, explaining that for much of August he too was on leave. An agency spokesman called reporters the same evening to say Tenet had misspoken and that Tenet had briefed Bush on August 17th and 31st. The spokesman explained that the second briefing took place after the President had returned to Washington and played down the first one in Crawford as uneventful. In his book, At the Center of the Storm, 2007, Tenet refers to what is almost certainly his August 17th visit to Crawford as a follow-up to the Bin Laden determined to strike in the U.S. article and the CIA prepared President's daily briefing of August 6th. That briefing was immortalized in a Time magazine photo capturing Harriet Miers holding the president's daily briefing open for the president as two CIA officers sit by. It is the same briefing to which the president reportedly reacted by telling the CIA briefer, "All right, you've covered your ass now." Ron Susskind, the 1% Doctrine, page 2, 2006. That's the citation. In At the Center of the Storm, Tenet writes, quote, "A few weeks after the August 6th presidential daily briefing was delivered, I followed it to Crawford to make sure that the president stayed current on events." A White House press release suggests Tenet was also there a week later, on August 24th. According to the August 25th, 2001 release, President Bush, addressing a group of visitors to Crawford on August 25th, told him, quote, "George Tenet and I, yesterday, we piled in the new nominees for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the vice chairman, and their wives, and went right up the canyon." Unquote. In early February 2002, Vice President Dick Cheney warned then Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle that if Congress went ahead with an investigation, administration officials might not show up to testify. As pressure grew for an investigation, the President and Vice President agreed to the establishment of a Congressional Joint Committee to conduct a joint inquiry. Eleanor Hill, Executive Director of the inquiry, opened the joint inquiry's final public hearing in mid-September 2002 with the following disclaimer, quote, "I need to report that, according to the White House and the Director of Central Intelligence, the President's knowledge of intelligence information relevant to this inquiry remains classified, even when the substance of the intelligence information has been declassified." Unquote. The National Commission on Terrorist Attacks, also known as the 9/11 Commission, was created on November 27, 2002, following passage of congressional legislation signed into law by President Bush. The President was asked to testify before the Commission. He refused to testify except for 1 hour in private with only 2 Commission members present, with no oath administered, with no recording or note-taking, with the Vice President at his side. Commission co-chair Lee Hamilton has written that he believes the Commission was set up to fail, was underfunded, was rushed, and did not receive proper cooperation and access to information. A December 2007 review of classified documents by former members of the Commission found that the Commission had made repeated and detailed requests to the CIA in 2003 and 2004 for documents and other information about the interrogation of operatives of al-Qaeda, and had been told falsely by a top CIA official that the agency had produced or made available for review everything that had been requested. In all these actions and decisions, President George W. Bush has acted in a manner contrary to his trust as President and subversive of constitutional government, to the prejudice of the cause of law and justice, and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Wherefore, President George W. Bush, by such conduct, is guilty of an impeachable offense warranting removal from office. Article 35, endangering the health of 9/11 first responders. In his conduct while President of the United States, George W. Bush, in violation of his constitutional oath to faithfully execute the office of President of the United States, and to the best of his ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty under Article 2, Section 3, to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, has both personally and acting through his agents and subordinates, together with the Vice President, recklessly endangered the health of first responders, residents, and workers at and near the former location of the World Trade Center in New York City.